nicely. You know, I like these big old twins. They have a nice...
Before hypercars and steam engines filled his famous garage, Jay Leno fell in love with something far rarer, a British motorcycle once called the Rolls-Royce of bikes. His 1930 Brough Superior is not just collectible, it is one of the most fascinating machines in Hollywood history. Number 20. The Brough Superior was once called the Rolls-Royce of Motorcycles.
Maybe get into some of that stuff later. This is a 1924.
The motorcycle Jay Leno owns from 1930 belongs to a brand that once held an almost mythical reputation among riders. Brough Superior motorcycles were often referred to as the Rolls-Royce of Motorcycles, a nickname that reflected their extraordinary craftsmanship and engineering standards. The company was founded by George Brough in England during the early 20th century. Rather than mass-producing motorcycles like many competitors, Brough focused on creating machines that were individually assembled and carefully inspected. Each motorcycle was treated almost like a custom-built project rather than a standardized factory product. Parts were selected for quality, and the assembly process emphasized precision and refinement. Riders who purchased a Brough Superior were not simply buying transportation, they were purchasing a luxury mechanical object. These motorcycles were expensive even when new, costing significantly more than most other bikes available during the 1920s and 1930s. Wealthy enthusiasts and racing pioneers gravitated toward them because of their performance and elegance. The machines were known for combining powerful engines with smooth riding characteristics. For collectors like Jay Leno, owning one represents a connection to a period when engineering and craftsmanship defined the reputation of a vehicle. The nickname comparing the motorcycle to Rolls-Royce automobiles eventually became so widely accepted that the luxury car company politely asked Brough to stop using it in advertisements. Nevertheless, the association remains strong. Today, Brough Superior motorcycles continue to carry that legendary status among collectors and historians. Leno's 1930 example reflects a time when motorcycles could be both high-performance machines and objects of luxury craftsmanship. Number 19. Each Brough Superior motorcycle was individually tested for speed before delivery.
A declaration of power, elegance, and an aristocratic rebellion against the ordinary.
Extremely comfortable. You can adjust the seat up or down. I'm a pretty tall guy.
One unusual practice set Brough Superior apart from nearly every other motorcycle manufacturer of its era. Before delivering a motorcycle to its customer, the company tested the machine personally to confirm its performance. George Brough believed that every motorcycle leaving his workshop should meet the exact specifications promised to buyers. Instead of relying solely on theoretical engineering numbers, he insisted that the motorcycles be ridden and measured. Speed tests were conducted to verify the machine's capabilities. If a motorcycle was advertised as capable of reaching a certain speed, it had to achieve that performance during testing. Once the motorcycle passed the evaluation, it received certification confirming the verified speed. This process was extremely unusual at a time when many manufacturers simply estimated performance figures. The testing procedure reinforced the reputation of Brough Superior motorcycles as elite machines built with uncompromising standards. For collectors like Jay Leno, this attention to detail is one of the reasons the brand remains so respected today. It demonstrates how seriously George Brough treated engineering promises. The philosophy behind the brand emphasized accountability and pride in craftsmanship. Every machine had to prove itself before reaching the hands of its owner. This practice also created an emotional connection between the company and its customers. Riders knew their motorcycle had already been pushed to its limits and validated by the manufacturer. In an era before modern performance testing facilities, this commitment required dedication and skill from the engineers and test riders responsible for the process. Number 18. The engine in Leno's motorcycle came from a different manufacturer.
But it was the spare bike that had problems with the OEC, so they used the Zenith to set the record. But there was...
One of the most surprising facts about Brough Superior motorcycles is that the company did not manufacture all of its own engines. Instead, George Brough collaborated with other engineering specialists who supplied engines designed specifically for his motorcycles. Many Brough Superior models used engines built by the British engineering company JAP, which stood for J.A. Prestwich Industries. JAP engines were famous for their reliability and strong power output. By partnering with a respected engine builder, Brough ensured that his motorcycles delivered both performance and durability. This approach allowed the company to focus on chassis design, assembly precision, and overall refinement. The engines themselves became legendary components in early 20th century motorcycle racing and road riding. The JAPV twin engine used in many Brough models produced impressive torque for its time, allowing the motorcycles to accelerate strongly even at lower speeds. For Leno, this engine represents a fascinating piece of mechanical history. It demonstrates how specialized engineering collaborations shaped early motorcycle development. Instead of trying to build every component in-house, Brough selected the best available technology from trusted partners. This philosophy mirrored practices seen in high-end automobile manufacturing during the same era. The result was a motorcycle that combined the strengths of multiple engineering traditions into one machine. Number 17. The Brough Superior was one of the fastest motorcycles of its era.
By Indian and Harley once again, but by 1923 and 24,
During the 1920s and 1930s, few motorcycles could match the performance of a Brough Superior. These machines were built with speed in mind at a time when motorcycle engineering was advancing rapidly. Certain models were capable of reaching speeds exceeding 100 miles per hour, an astonishing achievement for motorcycles of that period. The combination of powerful engines, lightweight construction, and aerodynamic positioning allowed Brough Superior motorcycles to outperform many competitors. Riders seeking excitement and performance often gravitated toward the brand for this reason. The motorcycles were not only luxurious, but also genuinely fast machines capable of thrilling rides. For someone like Leno, who has a deep appreciation for mechanical performance, owning a motorcycle with such historical speed credentials adds to its appeal. The engineering required to achieve those speeds in the early 20th century was remarkable. Engineers had to design frames strong enough to handle the forces produced by high speeds, while maintaining stability and control. Tire technology, braking systems, and suspension components were far less advanced than modern equivalents, which made achieving safe high-speed riding even more challenging. The Brough Superior's ability to combine speed with reliability contributed greatly to its legendary reputation among riders and collectors. Number 16. Lawrence of Arabia famously owned multiple Brough Superiors.
Became an icon, a legend in his own lifetime. Yet for himself, he felt
One of the most famous historical figures associated with Brough Superior motorcycles was T.E. Lawrence, better known as Lawrence of Arabia. The British military officer and writer developed a deep admiration for the brand and owned several Brough Superior motorcycles during his lifetime. Lawrence reportedly described riding these machines as one of the greatest pleasures he experienced outside his military adventures. He valued their speed, mechanical elegance, and reliability. Tragically, Lawrence of Arabia was involved in a fatal accident while riding one of his Brough Superior motorcycles in 1935. The crash occurred when he swerved to avoid two boys on bicycles. Although he avoided hitting them, the sudden maneuver caused him to lose control of the motorcycle. His death had a lasting impact on both the brand's history and motorcycle safety awareness. The accident also led to important research into motorcycle helmets. Neurosurgeon Hugh Cairns later studied Lawrence's injuries and advocated strongly for helmet use among military riders. This eventually contributed to the adoption of motorcycle helmets by the British Army. Number 15. The Brough Superior used hand-built frames rather than factory standard production parts.
This is a 1927 Brough Superior SS100.
One of the defining characteristics of Brough Superior motorcycles was the way their frames were constructed. Unlike many motorcycles of the 1920s and 1930s that relied on standardized factory components, Brough Superior frames were assembled with careful manual craftsmanship. skilled workers shaped and joined steel tubing by hand, ensuring each motorcycle frame met the company's strict structural standards. This process required considerable experience because the alignment of the frame directly affected how the motorcycle handled on the road. A small deviation could change the stability of the machine at higher speeds. George Brough insisted that each frame be carefully checked during assembly to ensure precise geometry. The resulting structure provided both strength and balanced handling. This dedication to craftsmanship meant production numbers remained relatively low compared with mass-produced motorcycles. Instead of thousands of identical machines leaving a factory line, each Brough Superior emerged as a slightly unique product, shaped by the hands of engineers and mechanics. For collectors such as Leno, this hand-built approach is part of the motorcycle's appeal. It represents a period when manufacturing emphasized artistry as much as efficiency. Riders who purchased these motorcycles knew they were receiving something that had been carefully assembled, rather than simply stamped out by automated machinery. The frame itself became a foundation for the motorcycle's performance and character. Because of this meticulous process, many Brough Superior motorcycles have survived for nearly a century while remaining structurally sound. Their longevity demonstrates the effectiveness of careful craftsmanship combined with high-quality materials. Number 14. The fuel tanks were often polished to a mirror-like finish. The visual identity of Brough Superior motorcycles included a striking detail that immediately set them apart from many other motorcycles of their era. Many models featured fuel tanks made of metal, polished to a mirror-like surface. Instead of covering the tank entirely with paint, the company allowed the polished metal to remain visible, often framed by painted panels on the sides. Achieving this finish required extensive manual polishing. Workers buffed the metal repeatedly until it reflected light almost like chrome. The result gave the motorcycle an elegant appearance that emphasized both craftsmanship and luxury. Riders often commented that the tank looked like a piece of jewelry mounted on the frame of a motorcycle. This design choice reinforced the brand's reputation for producing motorcycles that were as beautiful as they were powerful. For Leno, whose garage contains many historically significant vehicles, the polished tank represents an aesthetic tradition rarely seen in modern motorcycles. Contemporary manufacturing methods often rely on paint or composite materials rather than exposed polished metal surfaces. The reflective tank of the Brough Superior demonstrates how early motorcycle design combined mechanical engineering with decorative artistry. Maintaining such a finish required regular cleaning and polishing by the owner. Dirt and fingerprints could quickly dull the shine if neglected. This maintenance requirement also reflected the culture of early motorcycle ownership, where riders frequently cared for their machines personally. Number 13. Brough Superior motorcycles were often customized for individual buyers.
That period. Each one was guaranteed 100 miles an hour before it left.
Although Brough Superior motorcycles were produced in limited numbers, they were rarely identical. George Brough frequently worked directly with customers to tailor certain aspects of their motorcycles according to personal preferences. Buyers could request different handlebar shapes, seating configurations, or mechanical components depending on how they intended to use the motorcycle. Some riders preferred machines designed for high-speed touring, while others wanted configurations optimized for racing or endurance riding. Because the motorcycles were built in relatively small quantities, the company could accommodate these requests more easily than large manufacturers. This customization philosophy made each motorcycle feel personal to its owner. The practice also contributed to the brand's reputation for exclusivity. Owning a Brough Superior meant possessing a machine that might differ subtly from any other example. For Leno, whose interest in vehicles often centers on unique engineering stories, this level of individuality adds historical value to the motorcycle. It reflects an era when manufacturers maintained direct relationships with their customers rather than selling standardized products through anonymous dealerships. This approach resembled the tradition of bespoke craftsmanship seen in luxury automobile manufacturing. Riders purchasing these motorcycles often felt they were collaborating with the manufacturer to create their ideal machine. Number 12. The braking systems were mechanical drum brakes requiring significant rider skill.
I do this. Just dump on that rear brake, skid the tire on purpose, and kind of do like 90-degree turns.
Motorcycles from the early 20th century relied on braking technology very different from the hydraulic disc systems used today. Brough Superior motorcycles used drum brakes operated through mechanical linkages connected to the rider's controls. When the rider squeezed the brake lever or pressed the foot pedal, cables or rods activated brake shoes inside a rotating drum attached to the wheel. Friction between the shoes and the drum slowed the motorcycle. While effective for their time, these systems required careful control from the rider. Drum brakes could fade if used repeatedly during steep descents or aggressive riding. Riders had to anticipate stops earlier and apply braking pressure gradually rather than suddenly. Mastering these braking characteristics required experience and attention. For modern collectors like Leno, riding such a motorcycle provides a glimpse into the skill required by early motorcyclists. Operating the machine safely involves understanding its limitations and adjusting riding technique accordingly. The braking system also illustrates how far motorcycle engineering has advanced over the past century. Number 11. Many surviving Brough Superiors are now worth extraordinary sums.
Brough Superior 1938 SS100 for the first time a former...
Because Brough Superior motorcycles were produced in relatively small numbers, surviving examples have become extremely valuable collector items. Many motorcycles from the 1920s and 1930s disappeared over time due to accidents, neglect, or wartime metal shortages. As a result, the number of preserved Brough Superiors remaining today is limited. This rarity has driven their value dramatically upward in the collector market. Certain examples have sold at auctions for hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on their condition and historical significance. The brand's reputation for craftsmanship and performance has also contributed to this demand. Enthusiasts view Brough Superior motorcycles as some of the most desirable machines from the early era of motorcycling. Leno's example represents not only a mechanical artifact, but also a highly valuable historical object. For collectors, owning such a motorcycle means preserving a piece of engineering heritage that cannot easily be replaced. Number 10, the riding position reflected early 20th century touring culture.
While it was difficult for Dave Lockhead on the Brough to travel very fast on the grass,
the riding ergonomics of Brough Superior motorcycles were shaped by the expectations of riders during the early decades of motorcycling. These machines were often used for long-distance travel on roads that were far less developed than modern highways. As a result, designers focused on creating a riding posture that allowed endurance rather than aggressive racing. The rider sat relatively upright, with arms extended toward wide handlebars. Foot pegs were positioned beneath the rider's body to maintain balance during uneven road conditions. This posture provided stability and comfort during extended journeys. Unlike modern sport motorcycles that encourage a crouched racing position, the Brough Superior emphasized steady control and visibility. Riders could maintain awareness of their surroundings while traveling long distances. For someone like Leno, riding this motorcycle today offers insight into how early motorcyclists experienced the road. The upright posture allows the rider to observe landscapes more easily, while feeling the mechanical vibrations of the engine through the frame. This connection between rider and machine defines the character of vintage motorcycles. Number 9, the suspension used a girder fork system rather than telescopic forks.
Racers cornering in slow-mo. A true feast for the eyes.
Transferred to clutch housing. The clutch assembly transfers power to the input shaft.
Early Brough Superior motorcycles used a suspension design known as a girder fork. Instead of the telescopic fork tubes commonly seen on modern motorcycles, the girder fork used a system of metal links connected by springs and pivot points. This arrangement allowed the front wheel to move vertically when encountering bumps in the road. The design provided basic shock absorption while maintaining structural strength. Although girder forks appear complex compared with modern designs, they were effective for the technology available at the time. The exposed springs and linkages also created a distinctive visual appearance. Riders could actually see the suspension components moving as the motorcycle traveled over uneven surfaces. For collectors such as Jay Leno, the girder fork represents an important stage in the evolution of motorcycle engineering. It demonstrates how early designers experimented with different methods of improving ride comfort before the widespread adoption of hydraulic suspension systems. Number 8. The exhaust system produced a unique low mechanical tone.
Of any superbike you could buy.
Brough Superior motorcycles generated a distinctive sound that differed from many modern motorcycles. The combination of large displacement engines and relatively simple exhaust systems created a deep mechanical tone. Instead of the sharp, high-pitched noise associated with racing motorcycles, the Brough produced a slower rhythmic pulse. Riders often described the sound as powerful, yet refined. The exhaust note reflected the engine's torque-heavy design. Each combustion cycle could be felt through the frame as well as heard through the exhaust pipes. For enthusiasts like Jay Leno, the sound of the motorcycle is part of its personality. Vintage motorcycles communicate their mechanical activity through sound and vibration in ways that modern machines sometimes conceal. The Brough Superior's exhaust note therefore contributes to the sensory experience of riding the motorcycle. Number 7. Early owners often rode these motorcycles across entire countries.
The one thing to remember with these Broughs though is that they are a long...
Despite their luxurious reputation, Brough Superior motorcycles were not merely display pieces. Many owners used them for serious long-distance travel. Riders frequently embarked on journeys covering hundreds or even thousands of miles. These trips often involved navigating rural roads that lacked consistent pavement or reliable signage. The motorcycle's powerful engines and strong frames made them capable of enduring such demanding journeys. Riders carried tools and spare parts to perform repairs along the way. Traveling long distances on a motorcycle during the 1920s or 1930s required determination and mechanical knowledge. For modern collectors like Jay Leno, imagining these journeys helps illustrate how adventurous early motorcycling culture could be. The Brough Superior served not only as a luxury machine, but also as a vehicle capable of real exploration. Number 6. The brand disappeared for decades before being revived in modern times. Although Brough Superior motorcycles achieved legendary status during the early 20th century, the company eventually ceased production. Economic challenges and changing market conditions made it difficult for small luxury motorcycle manufacturers to survive after the 1930s. For decades, the name existed primarily in history books and collector circles. However, in recent years, the brand has been revived by modern engineers seeking to recreate the spirit of the original machines. Contemporary Brough Superior motorcycles combine modern technology with design elements inspired by the historic models. This revival demonstrates the lasting influence of the original brand. Machines like Jay Leno's 1930 motorcycle serve as reminders of the engineering legacy that inspired the company's rebirth. Number 5. The motorcycle used separate oiling systems that riders had to monitor manually.
Begins its journey in the sump and reservoir of oil. The oil pump sucks oil up.
Motorcycles from the early 20th century required much more direct mechanical awareness from their riders than modern machines. The 1930 Brough Superior in Jay Leno's collection used an oiling system that depended on the rider actively monitoring the engine's lubrication. Instead of relying entirely on automated circulation systems like modern motorcycles, early engines often used mechanical pumps that the rider had to observe and occasionally adjust. Riders could watch small indicator windows or external oil lines to confirm that lubrication was flowing properly. If the engine was running at higher speeds or under heavy load, the rider needed to ensure that enough oil was reaching the moving components inside the engine. Failure to monitor lubrication could lead to overheating or mechanical damage. This requirement meant that operating the motorcycle demanded constant attention and mechanical awareness. The rider was not simply steering the bike, but actively participating in maintaining its health during operation. For someone like Jay Leno, who enjoys understanding the mechanical intricacies of historic vehicles, this system adds to the motorcycle's charm. It represents an era when riding and engineering were deeply connected experiences. Modern motorcycles hide most mechanical processes behind electronics and sealed systems, but vintage machines expose them openly. The rider becomes part operator and part engineer, listening to engine sounds and observing oil flow while riding. This interaction reinforces the idea that early motorcycles were living mechanical devices rather than purely automated transportation tools. Number 4. The motorcycle's leather seat was designed for long endurance rides. The seat on a 1930 Brough Superior might appear simple compared with modern motorcycle seats, but its design reflects thoughtful engineering for comfort during long journeys. Early motorcycles often used thick leather saddles stretched over metal springs. These seats allowed the rider's weight to compress the leather slightly while the springs absorbed road vibrations. The combination created a surprisingly comfortable riding surface for extended travel. Unlike modern foam seats that rely on padding alone, the leather saddle worked as part of the motorcycle's suspension system. As the motorcycle traveled over rough roads, the springs beneath the seat flexed to soften impacts. This design was especially important during the early decades of motorcycling, when many roads were uneven or unpaved. Riders needed seating that could endure long hours of travel without causing excessive fatigue. The leather material also adapted gradually to the rider's shape over time. After repeated use, the saddle molded slightly to the owner's body, making it more comfortable with each ride. For collectors like Jay Leno, this feature illustrates how early engineers approached comfort using the materials and technology available at the time. The seat represents both craftsmanship and practical design. Leather saddles also aged beautifully, developing a rich patina that reflected years of use. Each crease and color change told a story about the motorcycle's history and the journeys it had taken. Number 3. The motorcycle required manual fuel management during long rides. Riding a 1930 Brough Superior required more active management of fuel than modern motorcycles demand. Many early motorcycles used fuel taps and gravity-fed carburetor systems that depended on manual control. The rider could adjust the fuel tap to regulate how gasoline flowed from the tank into the carburetor. During long rides, riders often switched between fuel reserves to ensure the engine continued running smoothly. Most motorcycles of that period featured a reserve fuel setting that allowed riders to access additional fuel once the main supply ran low. The rider would feel the engine begin to sputter as fuel levels dropped, signaling the moment to switch the tap to the reserve position. This process required familiarity with the motorcycle's behavior and awareness of distance traveled. Unlike modern motorcycles with electronic fuel gauges and warning lights, early riders relied on experience and instinct to manage fuel consumption. For Jay Leno, this system adds another layer of interaction with the machine. Operating the motorcycle becomes an active experience where the rider listens to the engine and monitors performance rather than relying entirely on automated instruments. These mechanical rituals were part of everyday motorcycling life during the early 20th century. Riders developed a deep understanding of their machines because they had to manage multiple aspects of operation themselves. Number 2. The motorcycle's headlights relied on early electrical systems. Lighting systems on motorcycles from the 1930s were much simpler than those found on modern vehicles. The Brough Superior used electrical components powered by a generator connected to the engine. As the engine rotated, the generator produced electricity to power the headlight and other small electrical accessories. However, these early electrical systems were not as stable as modern ones. The brightness of the headlight often depended on engine speed. When the motorcycle idled slowly, the light could appear dimmer. As the rider accelerated, the generator produced more electricity and the light grew brighter. This relationship between engine speed and lighting output was common on early motorcycles and automobiles. Riders traveling at night needed to remain aware of these limitations. Maintaining steady engine speed helped ensure consistent illumination on dark roads. For collectors like Jay Leno, this feature illustrates how early transportation technology evolved step by step. Modern motorcycles use sophisticated charging systems and LED lights that maintain constant brightness regardless of engine speed. The Brough Superior's electrical system reminds us how mechanical motion once powered nearly every aspect of a vehicle's functionality. Number 1. Riding the motorcycle requires constant mechanical awareness.
I've got a few Brough Superiors and I keep some of the memorabilia on the walls here. That's Lawrence of Arabia, probably the most...
And the opposite is true as well. The slower I go, here I'll slow down a whole bunch.
Operating a 1930 Brough Superior is not the same experience as riding a modern motorcycle. Early machines required riders to remain continuously aware of the motorcycle's mechanical behavior. The rider listened carefully to engine sounds, monitored vibrations, and watched instruments or indicator components while traveling. Gear changes, throttle control, and braking all demanded precise coordination. Because early motorcycles lacked electronic safety systems or automated adjustments, the rider served as the primary system manager. Every movement of the machine communicated information through sound, vibration, and response. Skilled riders learned to interpret these signals instantly. They could recognize subtle differences in the engine tone or feel that indicated mechanical stress or changes in performance. For Jay Leno, this level of interaction is part of the appeal of owning vintage machines. The motorcycle becomes a mechanical conversation between rider and engine. Modern vehicles often isolate the driver from these sensations through technology and automation. In contrast, the Brough Superior delivers a direct and engaging experience that connects the rider to the machine's internal workings. Riding such a motorcycle today offers a rare opportunity to experience transportation, as it existed nearly a century ago. Jay Leno's 1930 Brough Superior represents far more than a rare motorcycle sitting inside a famous garage. It is a living piece of engineering history from a time when machines were built with craftsmanship, patience, and mechanical honesty. Every detail, from the polished metal tank to the hand-assembled frame, reflects an era when motorcycles were both transportation and works of art. Riding such a machine today reconnects us with the origins of motorcycling itself. For collectors and enthusiasts alike, the Brough Superior reminds us that the early pioneers of engineering created machines capable of inspiring fascination nearly a century later.